Listen closely because this isn't just advice. This is a warning wrapped in a checklist. The Red Cross has seen it all. Floods, earthquakes, hurricanes, grid failures, and the one thing they keep saying over and over again is this: most people aren't ready, not even close. They've walked into homes where families had nothing, no water, no light, no plan, just panic and empty cupboards while the world outside turned into chaos. And after decades of disaster response, they've narrowed it down. 13 items, that's it, 13 things that separate the prepared from the desperate. But here's the part they don't say out loud. When disaster hits, stores empty in hours. Supply trucks stop, neighbors turn into competitors, and the things on this list, they don't just keep you alive. They become your bargaining chips, your leverage, your power when everything else falls apart. Most people will scroll past this. They'll think they've got time. They'll say they'll get to it later, but later doesn't exist when the lights go out and the sirens start. So if you're still here, pay attention because the Red Cross isn't guessing. They've seen what works and what doesn't. And I'm about to break down each item, why it matters, how I use it, and what most people get wrong. Let's get into it. Number 1, water, 1 gallon per person per day. You think you understand water until you don't have it. The Red Cross recommends 1 gallon per person per day, minimum. That covers drinking and basic sanitation, but here's what most people miss. That's the bare minimum for survival, not comfort, not cooking, not cleaning wounds, just staying alive. Let's break it down. The average person can survive about 3 days without water. But by day 2, your thinking slows, your energy crashes, and your decision-making turns dangerous. In a disaster, bad decisions get people killed. Water isn't just hydration. It's mental clarity when everything around you is falling apart. Most people grab a couple of bottles and think they're covered. But smart preppers, they calculate a family of needs for gallons a day. A 3-day supply means 12 gallons minimum. A 2-week supply, that's 56 gallons sitting in your storage before the first raindrop falls. You think a case of bottled water is enough? Wait till day 4 when your kids are crying, your throat is cracked, and the tap runs dry. That's when you realize the guy down the street with the water barrels isn't just prepared. He's in control. My take: I store water in multiple forms. Sealed gallons, water bricks, and a 55-gallon drum with a hand pump. I rotate every 6 months and I keep purification tablets as backup because stored water doesn't last forever. You need layers. So let me ask you this. How many days of water do you actually have right now? Not what you think, what you know. Because when the pipes stop flowing and the stores are stripped, water becomes the only currency that matters. And the family without it becomes someone else's problem real quick. Number 2, non-perishable food, at least a 3-day supply. When disaster hits, hunger doesn't wait. The Red Cross says 3 days minimum, but if you've ever lived through a real emergency, you know 3 days is just the beginning. Power's out, roads are blocked, and suddenly that pantry you never thought about becomes the center of your entire world. Let's break it down. Non-perishable means no refrigeration, no cooking required, ready to eat when everything else fails. We're talking canned goods, dried fruits, nuts, peanut butter, crackers, energy bars, and sealed pouches that last for years. The kind of food you forget about until you desperately need it. Most people stock what they like to eat. Big mistake. In a disaster, you're not eating for pleasure. You're eating for fuel, for calories, for the energy to keep moving, thinking, protecting. You need calorie-dense, nutrient-packed, long shelf-life items that don't require water to prepare because your water is already stretched thin. You think your fridge full of fresh food is going to save you? Wait till the power has been out for 48 hours and everything you bought last week is rotting while your neighbor is cracking open canned beans with a smile. My take: I keep a 2-week supply minimum. Canned meats, vegetables, soups, and high-calorie bars that taste like cardboard but pack for 100 calories each. I rotate stock every year, first in, first out, And I store a manual can opener in 3 different locations because a can without an opener is just a metal paperweight. So ask yourself, if the stores closed tonight and didn't open for 2 weeks, what would you eat tomorrow? What about day 5, day 10? Because when food becomes scarce, the person with a stocked pantry doesn't just eat, they decide who else does too. Number 3, battery-powered or hand crank radio. When the grid goes down, your phone dies, the internet vanishes. And suddenly you're standing in the dark with no idea what's happening 1 mile away, let alone across the city. That's when a battery-powered or hand crank radio becomes your lifeline to the outside world. Let's break it down. During major disasters, emergency broadcasts continue on AM and FM frequencies even when everything else fails. Weather alerts, evacuation orders, rescue updates, supply distribution points. All of it gets pushed through radio waves while people with dead smartphones sit blind and clueless. The Red Cross specifically recommends an OAA weather radio capability. That means your radio should pick up National Weather Service broadcasts, the ones that warn you about incoming storms, flash floods, and dangerous conditions before they hit. Information is survival, and radio delivers it when nothing else can. Most people think their phone will handle it. They forget that cell towers overload, batteries drain, and charging stations disappear when the power does. A hand crank radio needs nothing but your arm. 30 seconds of cranking gives you minutes of broadcast. That's energy independence when everyone else is scrambling. My take, I keep to radios. 1 battery powered with extra batteries stored separately, and 1 hand crank with a built-in solar panel as backup. I test them every 3 months because gear that doesn't work when you need it isn't gear. It's garbage. So here's the real question. When the alert goes out and your phone shows no signal, how will you know what's coming? How will you know where to go? Because in a blackout, the person with information moves first. Everyone else follows or falls behind. Number 4, flashlight with extra batteries. When the lights go out, panic sets in. Not because of the dark itself, but because of what you can't see. And in a disaster, what you can't see can kill you. Broken glass on the floor, flooded stairs. Someone moving through your property who shouldn't be there. A flashlight isn't convenience, it's control. Let's break it down. The Red Cross lists flashlights as essential for a reason. When the power fails, your ability to navigate, assess damage, signal for help, and secure your space depends entirely on having reliable light. Candles are dangerous. Phone lights drain your communication device. A dedicated flashlight with extra batteries is the only answer. Most people have a flashlight somewhere, buried in a junk drawer, dead batteries still inside, probably haven't touched it in years. That's not preparation, that's false comfort. Smart preppers keep flashlights staged, 1 by the bed, 1 in the kitchen, 1 in the car, 1 in the go bag. Each one tested, each one loaded, each one ready. You think your eyes will adjust? Wait till you reach trying to find your kid in a pitch-black house with debris everywhere, and the only sound is water rushing where it shouldn't be. That's when you realize light isn't optional. It's everything. My take, I run LED flashlights only. They last longer, burn brighter, and survive drops that would kill old school bulbs. I store lithium batteries because they hold charge for years and work in extreme temperatures. And I keep a headlamp in every kit because sometimes you need both hands free while the world falls apart around you. So let me ask you straight. Where's your flashlight right now? Do you know? Could you grab it in total darkness without fumbling? Because when the grid dies and your neighborhood goes black, the person with light moves with purpose. Everyone else stumbles and waits. Number 5, first aid kit. Disasters don't just destroy buildings. They destroy bodies, cuts from broken glass, burns from electrical fires, fractures from falling debris. And when it happens, hospitals are overwhelmed, ambulances are stuck, and the only medical care available is what you've got in your hands. That's why the Red Cross puts a first aid kit at the core of every emergency supply list. Let's break it down. A proper kit covers the basics: bandages, gauze, adhesive tape, antiseptic wipes, antibiotic ointment, pain relievers, tweezers, scissors, and gloves. It's designed to handle the injuries that happen in chaos. The slices, the scrapes, the punctures, the burns that turn infected if left untreated. Most people buy a cheap kit from the dollar store and think they're covered. But those kits are built for minor inconveniences, not disasters. They run out fast, the supplies are low quality, and half the items you actually need aren't even included. Smart preppers build their kits or upgrade what they buy. They add trauma shears, tourniquet, is really bandages, and quick clot for the wounds that don't stop bleeding on their own. You think you'll just go to the emergency room? Wait till the roads are blocked, the is flooded with casualties, and you're holding a towel against someone's head wound hoping pressure is enough. That's when you realize a first aid kit isn't a suggestion. It's a responsibility. My take: I keep 3 levels of kits. A basic one in every car, a full kit at home with prescription medications rotated every 6 months, and a trauma kit in my go bag with gear I've trained to use. Because owning supplies means nothing if you don't know how to use them under pressure. So here's the hard question. If someone in your house got hurt tonight and no help was coming, what would you do? Could you stop the bleeding, clean the wound, keep them stable? Because in a real disaster, the person with medical supplies and the calm to use them doesn't just survive. They become the one everyone else depends on. Number 6. Whistle to signal for help. This one sounds almost too simple. A whistle. Something you'd give a kid at summer camp. But in a disaster, when your voice is gone, your phone is dead, and you're trapped under debris with no way to move, that whistle becomes the difference between rescue and being forgotten. Let's break it down. The human voice carries maybe 100 yards on a good day. Screaming exhausts you fast, damages your throat, and becomes impossible after hours of trying. A whistle carries further, lasts longer, and cuts through noise that would swallow a shout. 3-shot blasts is the universal distress signal. Rescue teams listen for it. The Red Cross includes this for a reason most people don't think about until it's too late. In collapsed structures, flooded zones, or smoke-filled areas, rescuers can't see you. But they can hear you. A whistle punches through chaos when nothing else does. It's lightweight, it never runs out of batteries, and it works when your body doesn't. Most people skip this item. They think it's unnecessary, childish even. But smart preppers know that survival isn't about looking tough. It's about staying alive, and a whistle on a lanyard around your neck takes up zero space and could be the last sound you ever need to make. My take: I keep a whistle attached to every bag, every kit, every jacket I own. Not the cheap plastic kind that cracks, metal whistles, peerless design, the kind that works even when wet or filled with dust. I've tested them in rain, in wind, and in conditions where my voice wouldn't carry 10 feet. So ask yourself this. If a building came down on top of you right now and no one knew where you were, how would you call for help? How would rescuers find you? Because when you're buried and fading, the guy who packed a whistle gets found. Everyone else just hopes someone notices they're missing. Number 7. Dust mask. When disaster strikes, the air itself becomes a threat. Collapsed buildings throw concrete dust into your lungs. Wildfires fill entire cities with toxic smoke. Floods kick up mold spores that settle deep in your chest. And the damage doesn't show up immediately. It shows up weeks later when you can't breathe and there's no doctor available to help. Let's break it down. The Red Cross recommends dust masks specifically to filter out particulate contamination. We're talking a 95 masks at minimum, the kind that actually seal around your face and block particles down to 0.3 microns. Not the loose surgical masks people wore for fashion. Real filtration that protects your respiratory system when the air turns hostile. Most people ignore this completely. They think air is air. But anyone who lived through a wildfire season or stood near a demolition site knows the truth. You can taste bad air, you can feel it scratching your throat. And once that damage sets in, it doesn't just go away. You think you'll hold your breath and push through? Wait till you're evacuating through smoke so thick you can't see your hand. Wait till you're digging through rubble looking for supplies and every breath fills your lungs with powder. That's when you realize the guy with the mask keeps working while everyone else chokes and collapses. My take: I stock in 95 masks in every kit, sealed in plastic to prevent contamination before use. I also keep a few P100 respirators for situations where dust isn't the only threat. Chemical spills, industrial fires, anything that requires serious filtration. They're cheap, they're light, and they protect the one system you can't repair in the field. So here's the question. What would you breathe through if the air went bad tonight? A shirt over your face? That's not protection, that's desperation. Because when the air turns toxic and everyone's coughing blood, the person who can still breathe is the person who keeps moving. Number 8. Plastic sheeting and duct tape. This combination sounds like something from a hardware store run, not a survival kit. But the Red Cross lists it for a reason most people don't understand until they reliving it. When the outside world becomes dangerous, plastic sheeting and duct tape let you create a barrier between your family and everything trying to get in. Let's break it down. In situations involving chemical spills, airborne contaminants, or radioactive fallout, sealing a room can save your life. You tape plastic sheeting over windows, doors, and vents, creating an isolated space where outside air can't penetrate. It's called sheltering in place, and it's a real protocol for real emergencies that happen more often than people realize. But that's not the only use. Plastic sheeting patches holes in your roof when storms tear through. It creates ground cover in flooded areas. It builds improvised rain catchment systems for emergency water collection. Duct tape repairs torn gear, binds splints, secures bandages, and holds together anything that breaks when you can't afford to replace it. Most people don't stock this. They figure they'll improvise with trash bags or whatever's around. But trash bags they're thin, they're small. Proper plastic sheeting, 6 mm thickness minimum, gives you real coverage, real durability, and real protection when contamination is in the air or water is pouring through your ceiling. My take: I keep 2 rolls of heavy-duty plastic sheeting and multiple rolls of contractor-grade duct tape in my supply cache. Not the cheap stuff from the dollar store. Industrial-strength tape that sticks to wet surfaces and doesn't peel in humidity. I've pre-cut sheets for my windows at home so I can seal in minutes, not hours. So ask yourself, if something toxic was released in your city tonight and authorities said don't go outside, what would you seal your room with? Blankets, hope. Because when the air outside turns deadly and you've got 10 minutes to create a safe space, the family with sheeting and tape survives. Everyone else breathes whatever's coming. Number 9. Wrench or pliers to turn off utilities. When disaster hits, the things that normally keep you comfortable become the things that kill you. Gas leaks ignite, water mains flood your foundation. Electrical lines spark fires that spread while you're trying to evacuate. And in that moment, knowing how to shut off your own utilities isn't just useful. It's life or death. Let's break it down. The Red Cross specifically recommends having tools ready to turn off gas and water at the source. Most utility shutoffs require a wrench or pliers, and most people have no idea where their shutoff valves even are, let alone how to operate them. When a gas line ruptures after an earthquake or a water main breaks during a freeze, the clock starts ticking immediately. Gas is the silent killer. You might not smell it at first, especially in chaos. But one spark, one pilot light, one electrical arc, and your home becomes an inferno. Being able to cut that gas line in under a minute can save your entire block, not just your family. The same goes for water. A burst pipe can dump hundreds of gallons into your structure within an hour, destroying supplies, creating mold, and making your shelter uninhabitable. Most people assume someone else will handle it. The fire department, the utility company, emergency responders. But in a widespread disaster, those people aren't coming. They're overwhelmed, understaffed, or dealing with bigger emergencies. You're on your own, my take. I keep an adjustable wrench and a pair of heavy-duty pliers mounted next to my gas and water shutoffs. Not in a toolbox, not in the garage, right there on the wall where I can grab them in seconds. I've then walked every family member through the process, so anyone can do it even if I am not home. So here's the real test. Do you know where your gas shutoff is right now? Could you turn it off in the dark with shaking hands? Because when the ground stops shaking and you smell gas and hear your neighbor screaming, the person who can kill that line fast doesn't just save their home, they might save the whole street. Number 10. Local maps. Everyone trusts GPS until it fails. And in a disaster, it will fail. Cell towers go down. Satellites lose connection, batteries die. And suddenly the device you've depended on for every turn becomes a black screen while you're standing at an intersection with no idea which way leads to safety. Let's break it down. The Red Cross recommends physical local maps because they work when nothing else does. No signal required, no charging needed. Just paper, ink, and the ability to read terrain, roads, and alternate routes when your primary path is blocked by debris, flooding, or danger. In evacuation scenarios, main roads clog instantly. Everyone takes the same routes because that's what their phones tell them. Meanwhile, the person with a local map knows the back roads, the service paths, the shortcuts that bypass the gridlock. That knowledge turns a 6-hour crawl into a 40-minute escape. Most people haven't held a paper map in years. They couldn't navigate their own city without turn-by-turn directions. But smart preppers keep maps current, marked up, and ready. They know where the hospitals are, where the high ground is, where the bridges cross, and which roads flood first. My take: I keep laminated maps of my city, my county, and every route between my home and my bug-out locations. I've marked water sources, shelter points, and known hazard zones. I update them yearly and keep copies in my car, my bag, and my home kit because redundancy is survival. So here's the scenario. Your phone is dead, the roads are chaos, and you need to get your family somewhere safe right now. Do you know the way? Could you navigate without technology guiding every step? Because when the grid goes dark and everyone else is frozen, the person with a map keeps moving. And movement is survival. Number 11. Cell phone with chargers and backup battery. Your phone isn't just communication, it's connection to everyone and everything you care about. When disaster strikes, it's how you reach family, receive emergency alerts, access critical information, and call for help when no one else is around. The Red Cross lists it because in modern emergencies, a working phone can be the difference between rescue and being forgotten. Let's break it down. During disasters, cell networks get overwhelmed, but they don't disappear completely. Text messages often get through when calls can't. Emergency alerts push directly to your device. And even without signal, your phone holds photos of important documents, stored maps, contact information, and critical data you might need. The problem is power. Most phones die within a day of heavy use, faster if you're constantly searching for signal. And when the grid is down, outlets mean nothing. That's why backup batteries and car chargers aren't optional. They're essential. Most people have one charger by their bed and nothing else. Their phone dies on day 1 and they spend the rest of the disaster cut off from everyone. Smart preppers keep charging options everywhere. Power banks, solar chargers, car adapters, and hand-cranked generators that produce enough juice to send one critical message when it matters most. My take: I keep a 20,000 milliamp power bank fully charged at all times. I have solar panels that can trickle charge in direct sunlight, and I store a backup phone, old but functional, with all critical contacts and documents loaded. Because 1 is none and 2 is 1 when it comes to communication. So ask yourself, if the power went out for a week, how long would your phone last? Do you have any way to charge it without wall power? Because when the lines go down and your family is scattered, the person who can still send that one text, that one location pin, that one proof of life message, stays connected. everyone else disappears into the silence. Number 12. Important family documents in a waterproof container. When you're running from a flood, fleeing a fire, or evacuating in the middle of the night, you're not thinking about paperwork. But weeks later, when you're trying to prove who you are, file an insurance claim, access your bank, or get emergency assistance, those documents become everything. And if they're gone, you're starting from zero. Let's break it down. The Red Cross recommends storing copies of critical documents including identification, insurance policies, bank records, medical information, and property deeds. In a disaster aftermath, bureaucracy doesn't pause for your tragedy. Agencies need proof, institutions need verification, and the person without documentation gets pushed to the back of every line. Most people keep originals in drawers, filing cabinets, or safes that only protect against theft, not floods or fire. Smart preppers make copies, they laminate them, seal them in waterproof containers, and store them in go bags ready to grab in seconds. Some even store encrypted digital backups on flash drives with their physical kits. You think you can recover everything later? Wait till you're standing in front of FEMA with no ID, no proof of residence, and no way to verify the insurance policy you've been paying for 20 years. That's when you realize paperwork isn't bureaucracy, it's access. My take? I have a fireproof, waterproof document bag with copies of everything. Birth certificates, passports, insurance cards, medical records, property titles, even photos of valuables for insurance claims. I update it twice a year and it sits next to my go bag, ready to move in 30 seconds. So here's the question that matters. If your home burned down tonight and everything inside was ash, could you prove who you are tomorrow? Could you access your money, your benefits, your identity? Because when disaster wipes the slate clean, the person with documentation rebuilds, everyone else begs. Number 13. Prescription medications and supplies for infants or elderly family members. This is where preparation gets personal, and it's where most people fail the hardest. Generic supplies keep you alive, but specialized needs keep specific people alive. The Red Cross emphasizes this because they've seen what happens when families evacuate without insulin, without heart medication, without formula for an infant who can't eat anything else. Let's break it down. If anyone in your household relies on prescription medication, you need a rotating supply set aside specifically for emergencies. Not leftovers, not expired bottles you forgot about. Current, properly stored medication that can sustain them for at least a week, preferably longer. The same goes for infant supplies, formula, bottles, diapers, and any special equipment that baby depends on. Elderly family members often need even more. Mobility aids, hearing aid batteries, oxygen supplies, specialized nutrition. In a disaster, pharmacies close, supply chains collapse, and medical facilities prioritize critical trauma over prescription refills. If you haven't prepared, you're gambling with someone's life. Most people assume they'll figure it out. They think help will come, stores will reopen, doctors will accommodate. But in widespread emergencies, the system breaks. And the family watching their diabetic grandmother fade because they didn't stock extra insulin learns a lesson they lines never forget. My take: every prescription in my household has a 2-week emergency backup stored properly. I coordinate with doctors to maintain extra supply. For infant needs, I keep formula and supplies even after my own kids have outgrown them because neighbors, family, or strangers might need help and that trade value is real. For elderly relatives, I've built custom kits based on their specific conditions. So here's the hardest question I'll ask you today. If evacuations started right now and lasted 2 weeks, would everyone in your family survive their medical needs? Every prescription, every feeding, every specialized requirement? Because when the pharmacies are closed and the hospitals are overwhelmed, the family who prepared for their most vulnerable member stays whole. Everyone else makes choices no one should ever have to make. So now you've seen it. 13 items, not random guesses, not internet hype. This is what the Red Cross, an organization that's walked through more disasters than most people can imagine, says you need before the next emergency hits. Water, food, light, communication, protection, documentation, and the specialized supplies that keep your specific family alive. But knowing isn't the same as doing. Most people will watch this, nod along, and do absolutely nothing. They'll tell themselves they'll get to it next week, next paycheck, next month. And then the storm hits, the earthquake shakes, the grid dies, and they're standing in line with everyone else hoping someone saved enough to share. The Red Cross isn't guessing. They've held the hands of people who lost everything because they weren't ready. They've seen families torn apart by preventable shortages. They've watched communities collapse because no one thought it could happen to them. If you made it this far, you're different. You're not looking for entertainment. You're looking for an edge. You want to be the one who's ready when everyone else is scrambling. So here's what you do next. Hit subscribe, not for me, not for the algorithm. Do it for the version of you standing in the dark 3 months from now, calm and prepared while your neighbors panic. This channel isn't about fear, it's about action. Every video brings you one step closer to being the person who survives, protects, and leads when everything falls apart. Subscribe now, build your list, check it twice. Because when the next disaster comes, and it will come, the only question that matters is this: did you prepare or did you just watch?